Hi, everyone. It's Samantha Tennant, and welcome to another episode of Fresh Fiction's Video Book Club. And I am so excited for today's guest author. It's K.A. Linde, and I have read her for years with her contemporary books. And then she's had fantasy books out there, and I've had those. And then it seems like everywhere I was turning, her new Romantasy series, the from the Oak and the Holly cycle, were just everywhere.
Yeah,
And I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that because last time I saw you was at Book Lovers and it had just come out.
yeah,
And I am just wanting to hear about this entire journey because with these, you are now a New York Times
yes,
selling, in addition to USA Today, the number one Sunday Times.
yeah.
And even though you should have been a best-selling author before, but
Well,
those
I
markets.
was USA Today. I'd hit the USA Today like 15 times. I don't know, but yeah, this is the first time. New York Times. Yeah, it's crazy.
What is that
Um,
like? I mean, welcome, because I mean, you've been writing so long and your
yeah,
books are so popular. But like I said, I mean, with the Wren
yeah.
and the Holly, or the Wren and the Holly library, every time I was turning around or I went into a bookstore, I
Yeah,
saw your book and it seemed like it was on that cutting edge of the
yeah.
really pretty books with all
Oh
the
yes,
serene
really
edges.
pretty books. Yes. No, it was strange. Amazing, strange, but I actually in 20 because I've been around the block, right? I started in 2012 around the 50 Shades of Grey hype when that all started, right? 2011, 2012. And I had the numbers to hit New York Times in 2013, and they just left me off the list and they left me off of USA Today, even though I had as many sales as I did for the Wren and the Holly Library. Um, and so I was just like, well, then they kind of like changed the list. So I was like, well, I'm just never gonna hit, and that's fine. It's not like a goal, it's like a dream. And then when I was going out on submission with the Wren and the Holly Library, a lot of it was right before Romantasy
Hmm.
was a thing, even though Sarah J. Maas and Jennifer Armentrout were obviously already incredibly successful. I'd been writing it for a decade.
Right.
I kept getting rejections saying it had too much romance in a fantasy novel and too much fantasy in a romance novel. And I was like, what? And then Liz Pelletier, who is the owner of Entangled Publishing,
Hmm.
basically like got on the phone with me and my agent and was like, I'm starting this thing called Red Tower and I want this book to be a part of it. And I actually called Rebecca Yaros because we had been friends for a long time. And I was like, what should I do this? Like she'd worked with Entangled before and she's like, actually, I kind of have a dragon book I was thinking of writing. Maybe I should call them. So like we kind of like hopped on Red Tower together, which was also super great. And yeah, Liz just had this vision that Romantasy, she wanted to be doing what the book boxes were doing with like Illumicrate and Fairy Loot, which is a beautiful packaging, but take the Romantasy side that was already voracious in the indie spaces. And I sort of just luck and timing with a lot of hard work into the space. And she really believed in the product that we were putting out. And you can tell that it worked. So I got very lucky. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, every time I was walking into a store, it was front and center. And I
Yeah.
absolutely loved that. And I'd pick up like, isn't this such a pretty looking book?
I
And it
know.
seems too, I mean, it's just kicked off such an interest in not only the genre, but also in a lot of your previously published books, because you are in the
Yeah.
process of doing a lot of republishing
Yeah.
because you've gotten some of your rights back right to the
I
Ascension
am.
series. And
Yeah.
so what is
So
that like now having a
yeah,
different level
I
of
had
control and
self-published two different series. My Ascension series, which is a 5 book series about like a girl who discovers she has magic in a world where magic doesn't exist. And then my Royal Houses series, which is sort of a spin-off, which is like an enemies to lovers, where they have to become reluctant allies to win a dragon in a dragon tournament. And those are like connected worlds. And then I have Blood Type, which is my monster in the last blood
yeah.
match, which we're talking about today, which had sold to Random House in 2018. And I mostly sold that because the editor loved my contemporary work so much that she was like, I will take anything Kyla sells, even though vampires are not selling and no one is buying this. And it went on to do like really well in that paranormal space, even though paranormal was not doing anything at the time. But the imprint did fold. The agent went elsewhere, and she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" So she's like, "I picked that first. I knew it was good." Yeah, and when Red Tower found out that my blood type series was connected to my Oak and Holly Cycle series, they then purchased the 3-book series since I had gotten the rights back. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I have all 3 of those books coming out within the year. They're starting to re-release my Royal Houses books starting in October, and I have a release with them like every 3 to 6 months for the next 2.5 years. Plus, they bought the Ascension series, so that will come out after that. So,
I mean, this is crazy because that was the
yeah,
thing and trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to really highlight? Which book cover do we put on?
I know.
Because it's like you have so many different
I
books coming
do.
out with some of the re-releases and the new books. And even this one, when I first was looking at it, because the taglines was like, well, before you encountered the Holly Library, go back and see the monster in the, and I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I think I know these characters. And I'm like, oh, that's because I have some of these
Yeah.
books already on my Kindle.
Yeah.
That's why. It's like, oh, okay.
That's
But I
right.
mean, you are just like flooding everybody with all these
It's true.
books.
I kind of got really lucky. Like a lot of the people who are becoming very successful, other than like Rebecca Yarros, who has that large contemporary back, people only have like a couple books out.
Hmm.
And I have been writing in this genre for a decade. So I had like 13 books, and they were like, we'll take them. We'll give them to us. We'll take them. And I was like, okay. So I'm just going where the wind blows. But I do have to say the hardest part about all of this, like it's all sounds amazing, but I'm not even joking on a number. This is not an exaggeration. I have done 40 rounds of edits this year so far. 40.
What is all of that like? I mean, because with that many different edits and where you rewrite elements,
Yeah.
I was so fascinated by your initial inspiration for this world, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and with the entire Oak and Holly cycle, how you were in Ireland. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the intro with the first book, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
you're talking about the trip with your mom and then coming back to New York,
Hmm.
taking it from that, and you didn't write the book immediately. This was a
Right.
journey.
It's been a journey. Actually, the initial idea for the Wren and the Holly Library was actually because Graves, who is the main character, shows up in the Blood Type series. He
Mhm,
is uh an Easter egg in book 3. So you'll get to see him again. And he actually just wrote himself onto the page, and he was just like, "Here I am. This is everything you need to know about me." And I was just like, "Oh my God, I have to write this character. He needs his own story." But then I had nothing else except him. And he just like hounded me for several years. And then I went to Ireland, and then I had all of that happen with my mom, and I figured out I wanted to write a thief because I needed someone who could match him,
mhm,
because he's a very strong-willed kind of character. But yeah, it's been kind of crazy, and the editing process was really hard. Probably the hardest editing process I've ever had was definitely with Wren, because I wrote it first, sort of with a sequel in mind to Blood Type,
mhm,
and then the imprint folded. So I was like, I
mhm,
can't sell it to them. So I was like, I'm gonna cut out and not make it a sequel. So I like cut out everything that was related to Blood Type. And then I did an edit with my agent, and we went out with it. And then I got a bunch of no's, and I actually got one editor who really wanted to buy it, who gave me the same thing, like marketing won't give us any money for this because they don't understand. Basically, Romantasy didn't exist yet, but she gave me some really good advice and was basically like to change the title because there was a different title at the time, which more in line with the blood type, and I like make it more of a like literary title, and then like just punch the title through the book a little more. So I went back. I went to New York for a week, and I walked the entire book from start to finish, in the city with my husband, and took pictures and videos. And then I went back in and I made it feel like I lived in New York. And I like really punched up the like Celtic mythology. And that's when Liz got her hands on it. And then we did like many rounds of edits with her and their people. so, but it was all worth it in the end. So just a lot of work. But in a good way.
Well, and there's so many different aspects. I mean, too, because all the research that you did, I mean, I didn't realize there was that much that you were also taking photos of and laying out with New York, but then all of the Irish fairy tales and
Yeah.
myths, and like you said, taking all of that and interspersing it into a more modern day
Mhm.
American setting.
Yeah.
And how do you balance that amount of research
It's a lot.
and all the detail with that, but
Yeah.
still have a beautiful story and all the relationships and all these different characters to tie in also.
Yes. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you love that. I didn't do very well with that on the first book. That's why there were so many rounds of edits. I'll be honest. But once the world was really established after we did those edits, the edits were a lot lighter for Robin because I knew my world so much better. And so I'm writing the third book now, and I actually took a whole week of like just sitting down and researching, and I sort of had four topics and a notebook. And it was like New York City, because I like to bring new parts of New York City into each of the books. So the first one is sort of like post World War One, and the second
Mhm.
one is sort of the Roaring Twenties, and so the third one is going to be like the calm before the storm of World War Two is
Okay.
sort of where we're at. So I actually do a lot of historical research because I find that that builds out the political landscape a lot easier. I have a background in political science and philosophy,
Mhm.
so I find that stuff really interesting too. And then I look at, so like there's New York City and usually the politics. And then I do one thing on magic because their magic develops each book. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them a magical character arc as well as like a romantic character arc and a growth arc
Mhm.
all together. And then I also do one for the Celtic myths. I have like, you can't see here, but I have like a stack of books, and I've read a lot of them already, but I like to like go back. I have this one in particular that I really love, and it's called The Oak King, The Holly King, and the Unicorn. And if you know anything about art history, in France there was seven unicorn tapestries. They're
Mhm.
like incredibly
Oh
famous.
yeah.
And most people think that those are like a Christian religious figure, because since they were created in the 1400s. But a lot of times the book that I read and referenced has a lot of talks about like the actual things that they were creating were actually based on the original Celtic symbolism that was sort of overrun by Christianity, which
Mhm.
is sort of a theme in most of the places where Christianity took over. And so the unicorn is actually like a symbol for the Holly King. And you'll see in the background there'll be oak trees, and that's like the
Mhm.
symbolism of both of the seasons. And so I took a lot from that, looking at how the tapestries, and then it was really interesting when I was doing research, is I found that these tapestries are in New York. I was just like, oh, so much of the inspiration came from these
Oh,
tapestries, and now the tapestries are in New York. Yeah, they're in the
really?
Met cloisters.
Okay, because I thought there was one still in Scotland or London.
Nope,
Nope, they've
all seven of them are in New York
all of them in
City.
New York now. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I do a lot of research like that. And then I sort of just like sort of dump everything out of my brain and put it there. And then as I do the research, it sort of becomes a story. Like I have ideas, but they don't really form until you do the research part to build it out. It's a lot.
And then with that, especially since you were saying that you were doing rewrites and so many different edits, are there elements that you're like, okay, I definitely want to make sure this particular factoid or this storyline gets into the series, but I'm not sure necessarily where it needs to go? Do you have a scene where it's like, this would be perfect, but it's not going to fit here,
Yeah.
but you want to
Yeah, that
save it
happens
for
all the
maybe later?
time. Actually, the Met cloisters in book three is sort of a thing where I'm like, oh, I want that to happen, but I don't know how it's gonna happen. I like want to go see the unicorn, you know? But like for instance, I read a whole book on the Barbizon, which in New York City, the Barbizon is an all women's hotel from the 1920s where all of these like famous actresses lived because men couldn't come and like ruin the vibes. And so, which like sounds good to me. And since I was writing book two as the 1920s, and I was writing an actress who becomes part of the like heist group. Her
Mm-hmm.
name is Lyra, and Lyra is, you know, related to people in blood type. Um, I wanted her I wanted her to live at the Barbizon because I was like,
Hmm.
now it's a monster, all women's monster hotel. I was like, that sounds so cool. And we never end up going there. And there's just a throwaway line where it says that, no, I don't need to ride home. I'm just going to go and I'm staying at the Barbizon. And I was like, and that's it. It's a one line. I read a whole book for it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
I know. Yeah. Yep. And there's so many more books that I read where like nothing comes of it, but that's just the research process. But I have a master's degree in political science. My husband has a PhD, my sister has a PhD, so we're all like big learners. I
Hmm.
love the research part. That part's like the fun vibe part for me. It's like the editing part's the hard part for me because I feel like
Now,
it's
see,
just
I would think
there.
from the poli sci to help with some of the intrigue and, all of the back and forth relationship elements.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of the politics. When I first released the Wren in the Holly Library, a lot of the interviews were like, wow, the politics are really intricate in this. Was that really difficult? And I was like, no, that part's easy. That part's just organic. It
This
just
is
happens on
tame
its
compared to
own.
real life.
Yeah, yeah. That part's the easy part. Figuring out in the mind of a thief, more difficult.
And what has been the difference in your process in doing all of the romantasy versus all of your sexy contemporaries?
Honestly, I think the process is exactly the same. It's just usually um there's not also a fantasy plot. I
Hmm.
always like to say for my contemporaries, I try to make it where there's the romance plot and then there's a contemporary plot. Just like in my fantasies, there's a romance plot and a fantasy plot. So instead
Hmm.
of the stakes being, can we save the world? The stakes are going to be like, am I going to lose my inheritance?
Hmm.
Which is still a life or death stakes in contemporary. It's just not life or death like a fantasy. So I always try to, I think because I primarily read fantasy and I have most
Hmm.
of my life, I always like to think of the contemporary stakes the same as what I read when I'm reading fantasy. And I think it has to impact their entire growth and their whole relationship as well. It has to all hinge on who they are and where they're going. So for me, I usually can't even work on a contemporary either without a big overarching thing,
Hmm.
and sometimes it can just be family. Like my right series
Yes. Hmm.
is like it's very family oriented, but so the first set of series is all about like five siblings, but then the second set of series is actually all about a winery. They decide they're going to open a winery, and it's about all the people who work at the winery and how that shapes and molds their lives. And that's the same sort of feeling as like now all of these people are living together because they are going to go steal a magical artifact, which sounds like those
Hmm.
things shouldn't be the same, but it's exactly the same because you still have to build out a team the way you would build out a family
Hmm.
because they should feel like people you want to go hang out with.
Hmm.
So I actually think, I know like Rebecca says this all the time too. I feel like romance has helped so much like drill down to what's really important in a fantasy because I could just write forever, but like what's really important to the story is always going to be the relationships.
Right. And I think that was one of the things with Rebecca, because again, with her, I knew her more first
Yeah.
as the
Or
contemporary.
breaking your
And when
heart.
she was coming out with Fourth Man, I was like, what? Because she was doing all the promotion in Denver, and it was like, wait, what is going on with this? Okay. But with you, I mean, you already had a lot of the
Yeah.
fantasy books earlier. And since you say that you read fantasy all the time, what
Mhm.
was it really that drove you to initially do the contemporary fiction?
It's I actually was started writing contemporary first, and I think that's just because when I was developing my voice, I was definitely doing the write what you know. So
Hmm.
I actually wrote my first book at 14. I was like a freshman in high school, and I would write it between classes, and I would like hand my notes to my friend. She would read it in between classes and give me notes. It's like my first beta reader or She said she would say I was she was my first editor, but no, I was basically writing like Gossip Girl, which is funny because I have a series that's like adult Gossip Girl, but I was setting it like in Malibu. I didn't live in California. I have no idea what I was doing. But it was like figuring out what I like to write, which was like high
Yeah.
angst, high drama, like lots of love interests and lots of power dynamics and wealth dynamics. And that comes across like all of my series. I like to say I have a really good friend, Sierra Simone, who she I always say that she's at the juxtaposition of like sex and power and religion, whereas I'm usually at the juxtaposition of sex, power, and wealth. And so like across the board, the vibes you're always going to get from my books are going to be the same, whether you're reading one or the other. It's always going to play at those same things because that's just something that's very like id to me, like in my head that I love.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know.
Well, and I also want to touch on one of your standalones, which was the Following Me,
Oh,
which was about the domestic violence.
we
And
never get to talk about this one. This is so exciting.
well, I mean, it's an important subject, and you handled the story so well. And I remember reading somewhere that so well, in fact, that your mom actually pulled you aside, right? And
Yeah.
asked, is, I
Did
mean,
this
how
happen to
true
you?
did this happen? What, I mean,
She
which,
did. Yeah.
you
And I
know,
was like, no, this is just fiction. I really love Following Me. It was actually, I would say it's the farthest departure from my romance I've ever get, even though it
Mhm,
is a romance. A lot of people were, when it first released, were like, I can't believe this is the same person who writes her other stuff because it was a lot heavier. Um,
mhm.
but I wrote it because I wanted, one, I'm in love with the movie Closer. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie. But
Mhm,
there's only four characters, and so I really wanted to like try and push myself to see if I could write a book that primarily has four characters. So the story follows one girl who leaves her college for the summer and goes to stay with her best friend in Chicago. So it's her best friend, her best friend's boyfriend, and the boyfriend's best friend, who is the love interest.
mhm.
And it just sort of follows them that summer. And it was just really fun to write. And I wrote because you don't know what's happening. You don't know that there's
Right.
domestic violence while you're reading it. And you just get her nightmares and you think they're just dreams. But as you go on, you realize the dreams are actually what's happening to her. So you get like what
Mhm,
actually was going on as it happens. And yeah, I,
mhm.
I just love that one.
And you're right. I mean, it is a heavier subject, heavier than what you have in a lot of your other contemporaries. But I think that heaviness, or not the heaviness, maybe the seriousness of
Yeah.
it also comes across in your fantasy books.
Yeah.
So that is something that still comes
It's
out
true.
in
Yeah.
these other stories as you get into other heavier topics.
Yeah, because there's abuse in that I talk about in Wren, but also I have a book called Cruel Marriage as well where I discuss
Mhm.
abuse, and there's a book in The Right Sears, The Right Mistake where I talk about well, stalking, but also like alcoholism. So I have some heavier topics. I touch on anorexia at one point, and but yeah, it really depends on the story, what is calling to me, and I just think life is messy and no one is perfect
Mhm.
and there's always things we have to like overcome in your
Mhm.
life. And that's what makes it real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to also, because I always love reading dedications and then the acknowledgement section. And so,
Yeah.
of course, the dedication for the Wren, where it's like to everyone who fell in love with the library for, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. To the
okay,
girls
can
who fell
definitely
for the
relate to
library
that one.
before the prince, before the, yeah, before the beast. And I was like, yeah, that's me.
But then I also love the acknowledgments for that same book because reading through it and you're listing all of these people that you were saying were your support as you were going through it and bouncing ideas off of.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, there was Sierra in there and Rachel Van
Yeah.
Dyke, and Rebecca, and all these. I'm like, okay, yep, this is all around that 2022
That's
book
right.
bonanza group. And I was like, okay, yep, know all of these. Yep, this makes a lot
Yeah,
of sense.
yeah. I feel lucky. It's actually been really interesting transitioning over to fantasy because I do have Rebecca as like support for fantasy, and Rachel Van Dyken has a fantasy coming out
Mhm.
this winter. But like so many of my other friends are still in contemporary, and so like all of the like stuff that I get for events and stuff is still contemporary, but like everyone's asking me to do fantasy stuff and I don't know anyone. And so
Mhm.
it's a little lonely not knowing people in the fantasy world. Like I know people, but I don't like I haven't had a 10-year relationship with them in the same way.
Right.
So it's like all new stuff. And I have a 2-year-old, so it's hard to like go and be present, you know?
Figure all of it out. Yes.
Different times than 2012 was different times, man.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, talking about different times and things not being easy, I want to flip over to what we call our fresh fiction facts,
Oh
okay?
no.
Not that bad. Series of quick questions,
Okay.
hopefully off the top of your head. Sometimes we throw out a stumper or
Okay,
two, but
great.
that's just how it goes. Okay. Um, and normally this is one I save a little bit later, but you've already alluded to your big stack of books and research and everything. What is your most dog-eared book? The one that you constantly go back to? And it's a two-parter. Which one is it for research? And which one do you go back to for fun?
Oh, so I would say for fun, those are easy ones because it's Ender's Game by Orson Scott
Oh
Card.
gosh, yeah.
I read that in the 8th grade and I've basically read it every year since. And
Do you
then
also read Ender's Bean or
yeah, I
Ender's
do.
Shadow about
I
Bean
do like
afterwards?
Bean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. To me, it's a duology. Yeah, I got to read
Yeah.
both.
I mean there it's a whole series, but the first one is really like the twist, it's so good. And the other one that I read is Vicious by Victoria Schwab, V. Schwab.
Oh, mhm.
Because it's like X-Men, but if you got your superpowers by almost dying. Um, and everybody's and it's sort of written like a comic book where it goes back and forth in time, which time is something I love to play with, so I
Mhm.
love how she does it in that world. And I like both of the guys in this book. They're both sort of evil, which as we know, I love them morally black. So, and then yeah, for research, I would definitely would say for Wren, it's been the Oak King, Holly King, and the Unicorn book I read a lot.
Mhm.
There's also like Burglar's Guide to Stealing or something, and I know it's like a guide on like a how to be a thief, and it's pretty short, but I've thumbed through it a lot, thinking like when I have to write like vault scenes and her like breaking into vaults, he gives the like how likely are you to do this type of stuff,
Mhm.
and then he like thinks a lot about like how you would see a floor plan and like use that to your advantage rather than going through the front door because thieves typically aren't going through the front door. So I
Right.
read that one quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, after reading that, have you changed something that you've done in your own house because of it?
I don't use one of those, you know, those little lock boxes that people put all of their important documents
Oh,
in.
yeah.
They're basically useless. Um, he basically showed like did a test and it was like you only have to drop it from like 10 feet up and it just explodes. It just pops open. And it's like these things are not that's actually why in the beginning of the Wren and the Holly library, when
Mhm.
she breaks into Graves' house, he has one of these things, and she's literally like, "Are you kidding me?" She's like, there's got to be something else to this because I could literally just and it would open. So, and like obviously he has wards and he has magic and she doesn't know it. Yeah.
Would you rather go back in time and meet your ancestors or go forward and meet your descendants?
Oh, that would have been a good question to ask me a few months ago. Probably forward, forward. Let's say
Okay.
forward.
Okay. Okay.
It's a hard one.
What what is your favorite writing fuel? What keeps you going?
I used to drink Coke, but I gave it up sort of recently. So I really don't eat or drink anything except water usually when I'm working. I usually try to have a big breakfast and then a small lunch and so I don't eat while I'm working because like when I'm writing, I try to have like deep focus where like nothing else is happening for long stretches of time. And so I get distracted very easily.
What is the thing that you're most likely to forget when you're leaving the house in a hurry?
My husband.
Okay. Now that's going to be problematic if he's the one with the keys.
Yeah.
because then you
Yeah.
won't get very far.
I'm a passenger princess too. He's usually driving. I'm always turning around going, "Where were you?"
Other than books, what is something that you own a ridiculous amount of?
Oh no. Um, God, like nothing. Books is like my whole life. It's actually been hard. I haven't been able to read in a few months. And I'm literally like, what are you supposed to do with your time if you're not reading? I don't understand. It's crazy. No, Taylor Swift stuff.
Oh, oh, well, there's
I
a lot of that going on
I
right
have
now.
all of her vinyls, but just one of each because I'm not that crazy. But I have signed vinyls and I have some like her Taylor Swift book. And I have there's like a notebook that she had. And hold on, let's see. I've got her Eras tour book.
No.
It's all just like, oh, I have a bucket over there. That's from the Eras tour movie when we saw it in theaters. It's kind of nice that everybody else is a fan of her now because I've been a fan of her since the beginning. So I'm like, yay, there's more stuff and more people to talk about it.
What is the craziest thing other than Taylor Swift stuff? Okay. But what is the craziest thing that you have ordered online or as part of like an as seen on TV thing?
Oh, I don't usually buy much of that kind of stuff because I always think it's a scam.
Mm.
Um, oh God, that's a good question. I fall for athletic wear more
Oh.
pretty regularly. I also have a friend who so I'm a dancer and I used to
Mhm.
coach the Duke dance team and one of the girls who graduated when I was teaching coaching there is now a fit influencer. She has like
Oh.
200,000 followers. She's like huge, huge. And I end up falling for everything she says. And we're completely different body shapes. She's like 8 inches taller than me and like blonde and skinny. And I'm like short, dance, muscular. And I'm like, oh, it looks so cute on her. Click. And then I get it in and I'm like, what were you thinking?
But you know her,
Good on
so
the
that's what
blonde.
makes the difference, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
what fantasy world would you like to step into?
Oh, all of them are so bad
I
though.
know, right?
Um, Bridgerton.
That is so not the answer I was expecting from you, Kyle.
I'm not gonna die in Bridgerton except for maybe a bee, but I will probably get a hot duke,
That would work. Okay.
right? It's
Yeah.
not, I mean, I know it's historical, but it's like,
It's
I'm gonna call it
it's
historical fantasy. It's different.
yes.
I don't know.
Well, that's
I like
because
all
there's
of
so
them.
many good-looking dukes everywhere. That's why.
Right. I want them
Yes.
all.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know it's not fantasy, but I will claim it as fantasy for myself.
Who would you most want to be stuck in an elevator with?
Besides Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift. Other
Oh,
than that,
okay.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. And both of them for the same reason, because they're incredible storytellers. And I would just
Oh,
love to like
wow.
pick their brains.
That would be an interesting conversation.
Me, Taylor Swift, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, it would be amazing.
And you'd be able to touch on so many different elements of that. I mean, the storytelling, the politics, I mean,
Yeah.
just so
It-
much.
yeah, it would be a lot. And it's three different mediums too, because I mean, obviously Lin is a lyricist, but he's also a playwright. So
Right.
you'd have like a
Yeah.
playwright, a musician, and an author.
Well, and I mean, at their core, I mean, each of them, there's so
Storytelling.
many storytelling, right?
Yeah.
But again, different aspects and the different layers and how do you pull all those
Yeah.
things together. Okay. Cool deal. That would, yeah, that would be it. That's an interesting mix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you think deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of fantasy writing?
Oh. Hmm. Well, first, I don't think Mount Rushmore should exist, but um a fantasy writing, it's probably Jacqueline Carey, Rebecca Yarros, Sarah J. Maas, and Kat Cara Marie Moning, who did
Hmm.
Fever.
Yes.
Gonna go with that. I
Awesome.
think there's four, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That works. Definitely. Okay, out of all of your many books that are coming out, which is the next book that our readers should be on the lookout for?
It will be House of Dragons, which releases the very first in my Royal Houses series, and it's coming to stores October 7th.
And then, of course, the most important question too is where is the best place for our readers and listeners to keep up with you, keep track of all of your releases, and just to find out generally what's going on?
Probably, well, I think Instagram. I'm on Instagram the most. I'm a little addicted to Instagram, but also like my newsletter. I send a newsletter every week, which I know sounds like a lot and like who wants to hear anything from me, but apparently a lot of people. So mostly I'm just like, it's not like here, buy this thing. I try not to do that. Or if I do, I bury it at the bottom so that it's mostly just me talking to you
Mhm.
just like this. At the beginning, I tell you what my week is like and what I'm working on and like any inspiration I had. And then usually there's some pictures of me and my son and telling you like what's on sale and maybe some freebies from my friends because my friends give me freebies and I put them in there for you. That's you can subscribe on my website, which is kalinde.com, and you can actually get a free book from there as well. So
Well, Kyla, it was so great to talk with you tonight. Like I said, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, have several of your books on my Kindle and on the shelf, and I do get your newsletter. So
oh,
I can attest
lovely.
to, how often you get it and all of the different tidbits that you share. And for our readers and listeners, if you are new to K.A. Lindy's book, there are so many that you can choose from, either on the contemporary side or, of course, check out her latest Romantasy ones. And I will tell you that the Oak and the Holly Cycle books, starting with the Wren and the Holly Library, is absolutely fantastic, and you won't regret picking it up.
No, thank you.